The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Quirky Dog Podcast, inspired by some of the quirkiest dogs you can ever imagine and the owners who love them. This podcast is brought to you by the quirky couple themselves, Scott and Jess Williams. Their aim is to educate and entertain. Here's Scott and Jess.
Welcome, guys, and happy Wednesday. Today we are going to talk about keeping it simple. But first, we're going to start with the quirky tip of the day.
The tip of the day is Black Sabbath.
No, the tip of the day.
Spotify.
The tip of the day is limit your screen time. Show them what happened. So last week, we had Denise Fenzi on the podcast. It was a great podcast.
Zoom in.
We really enjoyed it. And then Scott talked about how he was going to get a flip phone. So we were talking about this as a couple, but then he publicly announced it. He has a freaking flip phone. So
when my family calls.
So how many days has it been now? Like 3?
Just a few days. I'm actually starting to lean into it.
Yeah, he does like it.
Although when I'm texting someone back, if she asks me a question, I'm like, I can't talk.
Oh, he gets very frustrated.
It takes me 10 minutes to text.
It is. The texting is a little bit tricky, but literally Scott's life has changed. I just went grocery shopping earlier today. I came back. He's just sitting in the car listening to music. He's not on his phone. A lot of things have gotten better in a very short amount of time. So limit your screen time. If you are a phone person, try to just put your phone on airplane mode for the day and, just check your messages a few times a day, text calls if anybody needs you, really can change your life. It's changed yours already.
I needed to go cold turkey.
Yeah.
I cannot regulate screen time.
You can't regulate anything.
And
but screen time
I was thinking about how, technology was supposed to become a time saver. And for me, it's become a time sucker, a time stealer.
Yeah. So now
I live in the real world.
Now we are keeping...
I'm right here, baby. I'm right here.
He sings when he makes breakfast. I mean, this may be like a little early mania from detoxing from screen times, but whatever. He's very happy. So we're taking the keep it simple concept and we're bringing it to the podcast here today because really, and we had touched on this last week in Denise's podcast a bit as well, let's break things down to make it as simple as possible for people, just to have some user-friendly things to do with their dogs. So Scott and I came up with a list of a few things that we want to share with you today.
KISS. Keep it simple, Snoopy.
Okay.
Because we're a dog podcast.
Keep it simple, Snoopy. All right. That's maybe we'll change the title from Keep It Simple to Keep It Simple, Snoopy. Okay. Anyway, we don't really have an order of how these things go, and I'm sure it'll go in different tangential directions. I'm sure you've heard this list before. Well, yes, I'm sure this has been brought up on various podcasts in various ways, but let's do a conglomeration of things to keep it simple for you and your dog. So my first one, which is really, really, really important to us. Structured feeding is literally just, it has so much more weight than any owner realizes. And the longer we're in this business, the more that I see that it really affects the dog and its behavior and the house that it lives in and the energy and everything else. So
I have a story for that one.
Okay, can I do my tip first?
Keep it simple.
Okay. So we're going to sit here and we're going to be giving our dog dinner, right? You have a crate in your home. If you don't use a crate for anything else, let's feed the dog in the crate. Open the crate door. Make sure the dog goes in first. Don't put the food in first. Dog goes in, or the dog is already in the crate and you go to feed the dog. You put the food in the crate. You close the door. You set your timer for 5 minutes.
And don't stare at them.
No, yeah, you leave the room.
Let them do their thing.
Whatever has happened within 5 minutes, I don't care if the dog ate 2 bites. I don't care if the dog finished it. If the dog has finished the food and is now throwing the bowl all around, then maybe you'll have to intervene sooner. If you implement that, or if you are a trainer and you have your clients implement this very, very, very simple thing, it shifts so much than someone who free feeds or someone who, oh, look, we're brighter. Oh, now we're not as bright. Someone who free feeds, someone who gives something like, kibble and then adds cans or canned salmon or, chicken. We start spoiling the dogs and indulging the dogs. You guys, feed them what you plan to feed them, portion control, 5 minutes, get the dog eating regularly. It changes everything and it's super simple.
I have a client. They called me because they couldn't handle their dog. It's a couple of seniors. They're in their 70s. They have a Rottweiler that weighed 169 pounds.
It's a big Rottweiler.
Anybody that knows Rotties, they should really never get over 130 pounds. I mean, a big Rottie should be 130 pounds or so, in my opinion. So I said, listen, let me do some dog walking for you. I just decided about 2 months ago to take a few clients that have problematic dogs, and I'll just come 3 times a week, get my hands on him for a half hour, give him back. And she was free feeding. She said, oh, the dog doesn't eat anything. There's a big bowl of kibble on the floor, you know. And then when she's not there, the husband opens up the cabinet and says, there's a big thing of milk bones. She goes, my wife gives him these milk bones all day. That's why the dog won't eat the food. I said, listen, we didn't even do the crate. I said, you put the food down for 5 minutes. If he doesn't eat, you pick it up. He doesn't get any food until the end of the day. I said, your dog's going to have a heart attack. I can't even walk the dog 30 minutes.
Scott's
the dog's like laying down
yeah.
on me. After 15 minutes, the dog is just exhausted and looking like a potential heart problem or something, you know? So I said, in the first week, the first 3 sessions, I didn't even leave the property. I was a little concerned about the dog, just back and forth in the driveway to get a feel for him. Anyway, long story short, she says, could you walk him down to the vet? The vet was about a half mile away, and put him on the scale for me. And I did that. I took him, put him on the scale, and he was like 164. So he had lost about 5 pounds in that first month. Then, a month later, and I got on her butt about the feeding. And I said, the dog is just not healthy, you know? And she goes, could you bring him to the vet? It's been a month. I said, okay. I brought him to the vet, put him on the scale, 154.
The
dog has lost like 12 pounds
This is so great.
2 months or something.
This is changing his life.
And they're excited. The dog is now just more full of life. He's still overweight, but he's just like excited. He recovers much faster from the walk. That's the one thing she noticed. She said in the beginning, she was really worried to the point where she said, I don't even know if you should walk him anymore because he's too hot. So we went from a noontime walk to 8:30 in the morning. I go to their house because trying to keep it cool for him.
And it's been a hot summer in New England. I don't know what's going on.
For this dog, 80 is like excessive.
And it's 90s this week. Like, I don't know what's up right now, but
anyway,
something's crazy.
So the dog gets home from a 30-minute walk, and he drinks a lot of water, and he's tired. But then after about 15 minutes, he bounces back, and he's running around the house, and they're just very excited. So you can really, like, breathe new life into an older dog or an obese dog easily because it's so easy for us to get weight off a dog when it's in for boarding and training.
Through structured feeding.
Yeah.
Because they're not used to having someone take their food away. And I'm telling you, for us, and I know that there's going to be more tips than keep it simple, but structured feeding is such a big one. For us, the day the dog starts eating regularly, like the day that I'm like, okay, it's eaten the same time, this quickly, for 3 days straight, that's when the big behavior change happens. Like, it's anecdotal evidence, it's fine, but like time and time and time again, when the dog starts eating on a schedule, that's when we're seeing the biggest breakthrough
big
too.
Shift.
So please, I don't care if you pay a trainer, we're not asking you to do anything more. And like Scott said, with this client, we didn't even say go out and buy a crate, because the crate has to be so big, it would take up most of their house anyway. But if you have a crate, and you have a dog bowl, and you are feeding your dog meals, whether you feed them breakfast and dinner, or just dinner, 5 minutes. If the dog does not eat breakfast within 5 minutes, offer it at dinner. If the dog does not eat dinner in 5 minutes, offer it at breakfast. And really, you may want to go to once a day feeding. But structured feeding is night and day. You guys, please consider it.
If you're Italian, or if you come from a big Italian family, this may not be possible.
Okay.
But back off. Food doesn't fix everything.
No. And structured feeding helps so many things. Okay, next simple tip. Step on leash when your dog is greeting someone, okay? So there's a lot of concern with, if your dog's sketchy on leash, your dog shouldn't be meeting anyone to begin with. Let's just put that out there. But if you're concerned about what that reaction would be, if you think the dog might jump up and tag somebody or scratch somebody, or it's just, rehearsing a lot of jumping. When you meet someone that wants to see your dog on the street, step on the leash just to limit those front paws from coming up. The person now can reach down and pet the dog. The dog's not getting reinforced for jumping. The dog cannot make contact with their chest. There's a lot of benefit to that. Stepping on the leash for greeting, huge level of importance. We mention it all the time.
No need to pay a trainer. I mean, this everything we're talking about. No need to pay for training. These are things you can do at home that are fairly simple.
This next one, you have to pay for something, though. This was a Scott one. Buy 6 leashes.
Yeah, you should have leashes all over the friggin' house. I mean, so many people, I go to the house, they can't find the leash. They find the leash, it's all chewed up. They never use it. They have a backyard. Our house is full of leashes. And I mean, it's ridiculous, but it's true. We have like I don't know what you call it. It's like a coat rack. And there's just leashes on every rack. And there's like excessive amount of leashes on each spot where a coat should be. And then Jess puts a hook by the door to the bedroom. There's just a hook there. And there's a friggin' leash on it. It's like, we have leashes on top of the crates. There's leashes whenever we need.
If there's a fire, you're going to have to be able to get the dog out right then and there. You can't run to your little leash arsenal. You need to have them accessible.
But they come in handy, and they're cheap. I mean, we're talking get the cheapest leashes you can find.
Yes.
Just get $3, $5
or
leashes.
if you want a super high quality leash, you can order the 6-foot biothane one on Canine Healing. Our clients love them.
Yeah, but then they say, oh, it's so expensive. I don't want to buy 6. No, buy a dozen cheapies and have them everywhere.
If you have
in the car, have them in your car.
Yes, if you have a second home, have one at your second home. Have one in the car. Have one in the bedroom. Have one outside in the backyard, just on the table if you need one. Literally being able to grab a leash and put your dog on a leash can save you in so many situations. Your dog is rushing the fence because someone's coming over. They don't want to come inside. Imagine walking over to your picnic table outside in your backyard, grabbing a leash, walking up to your barking dog, hooking the dog up, walking them in the house. So much less stress. The guy can come and check the meter. The dog's in the house. No bite, no runaway. Good stuff.
If you're a crazy dog person and you see a stray dog running into the street,
you're
probably going to stop the car and get out and try and gather that dog up.
Maybe we only do that.
A lot of people, well, we've done it, and a lot of people, I've seen people do it where they've risked their own lives running into traffic over some little dog. So
yeah, so buy 6 leashes unless you're Jess and you already own 60 plus. All right, on the leash front, if you have an old leash, a little bit chewed up, you don't trust it, or one of those really like thin nylon leashes that are just super cheap, they're going to be $5 probably at the dollar store. Have a drag line. We don't want it now to have a hook, like a handle in the leash. We don't want it to be able to get hooked on anything. We're not suggesting you have a drag line on your dog when you are not home. But if you have behavioral issues like rushing the window, jumping on people that are coming home, whether it be your husband or your wife or kids from school
every
or something
time Amazon
else.
pulls up, it seems like every household has Amazon pull up at least once or twice a week.
Yeah.
And the dog blows up. Pick up the leash, pick up the drag line, say, hey, get your ass over here.
Yes,
Control the dog.
You can have a drag line. You can very carefully go pick that up and move your dog away. And this is not now chasing your dog all around and trying to hook your dog up. Your dog already has a leash on. Your dog wants to go run out the door. You have an escape artist. Maybe the dog has a lot of anxiety. Dog's going to run out the door. You put your foot down on that drag line. No loose dog, okay? Like, these are the most simple things, but when you put them into practice, we promise you they're life-changing. And how do we know they're life-changing? Because we recommend these things all the time. And I understand that training can be cumbersome. I understand that you're sitting there and you're working with a trainer and there's all these things to remember and there's all these steps, and make sure you say free here and make sure you engage with the dog here, and make sure the dog doesn't curve in front of you when you sit, when you're walking. There's a lot of nuance. This isn't nuance. It's very straightforward things.
No dog trainer needed.
Feed your dog in the crate. Buy 6 leashes. Let your dog wear a drag line. All right, let's go to break super quick before we unveil more of the mysteries.
Want to keep up with all the latest from the Quirky Dog podcast like me and Murphy here? Then make sure you head on over to the YouTube channel and subscribe. Or if you prefer to listen to the madness, go on over to iTunes or Spotify and follow the Quirky Dog podcast. And hey, while you're there, leave a rating and review and let them know what you think of the show. Until then, keep it quirky.
Okay, another thing, a big one that people are not always doing and really catches them off guard. If you own a crate, and we do suggest that you all own a crate, and you're already feeding your dog in the crate, we would also suggest you crate the dog while you're home. So I would say 95% of our clients say, oh yeah, we use a crate. And they say we crate the dog overnight, we crate the dog when we leave. Great times to crate, great way to condition the dog to the crate. Why don't you crate the dog in the morning while you're cleaning up the dishes from breakfast?
Getting the kids out the door.
Yeah, getting the kids out the door, when you're having a friend over for coffee, when you're just doing something very benign at the house, like folding laundry or something.
You might want to roll a joint. You don't want the dog jumping in the middle of your weed.
See how the dog responds to crating while you're home. It is a great tidbit for anxiety. We want dogs to be stable in all aspects of their lives, whether you're at the house, away from the house, something else. And quite frequently, just changing up this routine gets the dogs like kind of stressed, kind of ticked off. They're like, hey, why am I in a crate? I shouldn't be in a crate right now. Normally I'm laying on the couch next to you. You don't have to crate your dog for 6 hours while you're home. Try it for an hour. And if your dog protests, that's good feedback for you. The dog has anxiety when it's crated in this regard. The dog isn't happy about his or her life. And if we're going to get even deeper into this, if the dog's whining or barking, don't let the dog out until the dog calms down.
I have one that's not on the list.
Crating while you're home. Okay, you can add
A little
two.
Controversial.
Oh, God. See, this is why we have lists. We clear
I heard
things.
this. I was at a client's house the other day, first time visiting them. They had 2 dogs, and both of them are in harnesses. One of them is super fearful and sketchy and reactive to everything, almost global fear disorder, you could call it. And I said, let's put a collar on the dog's neck and let me work him a little bit. And within, a very short time, the dog was just calm, and I had other dogs around, all this stuff. But the other dog there, the gentleman said, well, I tried the collar on his neck, but he wasn't comfortable with it. So we didn't do that. And the tip is, do something that your dog isn't completely comfortable with once in a while.
We did a whole podcast on this topic. We did. But that is a good tip as an aside. If your dog wears a harness, just put a freaking collar on him. I don't even care if you attach the leash to the collar. Put a collar on your dog. Get your dog conditioned to a collar. Okay, puppies don't like collars. They scratch. They wear the collar for 3 freaking months. It's over.
It's like putting a wedding ring on. You first put it on, you're like, God damn it. This thing is so... I could lose a finger.
Well,
after 10 years.
You haven't yet.
How many rings have I lost?
It is going to be 10 years. I think just one. And that
What
was
else
just because you lost weight. Okay. This was another podcast. So we did honestly do a podcast. I think it was entitled Make Your Dog Do Something He or She Does Not Want to Do. So if you want to search for that podcast, it's a whole episode on examples of that and what we mean. We also did a podcast on this and aggression issues, but I want to take this tidbit from that and reiterate it. If your dog has aggression issues, meaning they're resource guarding people in the home,
food, toys,
they're going after family members, aggression issues like you're having aggression at the house where your dog is going for you, growling at you, something else. Your dog should not be allowed on furniture. And that means couches, that means beds, that means everything else. Minimizing those interactions where the dog is now level with you on these different couches, on these different beds, all of this other stuff is going to help you with your aggression. I cannot tell you how many clients say, oh my gosh, when my husband goes to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, when he comes back into the room, the dog growls at him from the bed and he won't let him back in the bed. I can't believe I'm saying this. Some husbands go and sleep in the spare bedroom or they sleep downstairs.
And then the boyfriend comes in through the window.
Stop it. Oh my God. This is why we can't film multiple podcasts in the same day. Literally though, you guys, if you have aggression issues within your home, do not allow your dog access to furniture or control their access to furniture. Make sure you're inviting the dog up. It's not just a free-for-all that they're just pigging out on the couch all day and sleeping there and enjoying their little sunbathing. So
and another good time to have a leash on the dog.
Yes.
You're going to have the dog up. If you're going to invite the dog on the couch and the dog has questionable behavior on the couch, and it might not be aggression, it might be they just climb on your head. They can't just relax next to you. They just want to climb all over you. Oh my God, I love you. Have a leash so you can just control them a little bit.
Yes.
So they can sit next to you and just be calm. Yes. Have some manners.
Good moment to incorporate that drag line. Love it. Speaking of leashes, we talked about stepping on the leash if the dog is meeting someone. Important tidbit. We're going to limit jumping. We're going to limit those bed wraps. We're going to limit someone potentially being injured. Step on the leash at home. I tell you, we've been podcasting for 4+ years now. Stepping on the leash is the first exercise in how to calm your canine. Stepping on the leash seems so simple, so ridiculous. We cannot believe how effective it is. We still, to this day, do this on every boot camp return. We suggest this to any client who has anxiety. We suggest this if your dog doesn't necessarily want to go in the crate or doesn't do well in the crate. Step on the leash for 15 minutes before that. Maybe the dog shows anxiety on the bed. Step on the leash until it's calm before you put the dog on the bed. And in this context, I'm talking about like a place cot, not the, big fluffy bed with the nice pillows that the dog goes to sleep on. If you're at the vet's office in the waiting room, step on the leash. You're calming the dog down. You're limiting bullshit with other dogs coming into the vet's office and rushing your dog. Stepping on the leash, canine healing style. It literally is the first video that we ever put up on the Canine Healing YouTube page. Has had a lot of controversy over the years with, is this the right thing to do? Is it not? We can tell you from the bottom of our hearts that stepping on the leash can change the relationship with your dog and really help your dog's mental state.
Well, I do think it's a very undervalued exercise because it's one of the first things I tell people, and it's one of the very first things they forget to do. They think about training and they think about, I got to teach healing, I got to teach this, I got to do all this complicated stuff that involves a lot of time. You could be sitting on the couch drinking a beer and have the leash under your foot and your dog laying at your feet for 5 or 10 minutes, and it would be productive. It would be productive.
Yes.
And a lot of people think, well, why do I got to do that? He lies at my feet anyway. Because now it's your idea.
Yes.
It's not their idea.
And we're not trying to pin their head to the ground the whole time. As soon as the dog's settled in, move your foot a little farther away from the collar and the clasp. Let your dog settle into it. But you can take this on the road. I do this when I fly dogs and I'm doing taking off and landing, and it's stressful for the dog. You can be out in an outdoor cafe and do this. Stepping on the leash, undervalued, huge, huge importance. Okay, our last one is if you see bad behavior, stop it.
Intervene.
Simple. Sounds like not a big to-do. We recently had a client whose dog was reactive with the TV. He's like broken multiple TVs.
Yeah, the guy has knocked big screen TVs off the wall.
Like broken them. Like they're like, I'm surprised like the dog wasn't injured or whatever. But like if you see a dog that is going and reacting at your TV, the very first time the dog alerts to the TV, step in, do something. Dog leaves the room. Dog's outside for this show. Do something. Intervene. When you see bad behavior, running up and down the fence and, getting super aroused and barking, intervene. These things always escalate and become bigger problems. So as soon as you see bad behavior, stop it. We have a dog in right now for training. He's supposed to have crazy dog reactivity. I haven't seen anything out of him. He seems like an angel. I was walking him in the house the other day. Jimmy was off leash. And he saw Jimmy and he got pretty personal. Like he's licking his private parts and like really sniffing and everything else. I stopped it right away. Like that was not a good way for him to be approaching other dogs, whether he was just interested or anything else. I was like, hey, don't do that. We don't do that. As soon as you see something you don't like, especially as the owner, stop the behavior so it doesn't escalate and it doesn't become a bigger problem.
That last example was a little more subtle. But when you have triggers, like a TV going on and the dog blows up, it's just common sense that you could be a little proactive also. Rather than waiting for the dog to blow up, of course, yes, you need to stop it. But if you know, every time I put the TV on,
put the dog outside.
If there's a dog on a commercial, my dog goes crazy, well, don't let it keep happening. Put a leash on the dog. Remove the dog. And don't turn on the TV, but don't let it keep happening over and over.
Limit your screen time. And if we're talking about the TV situation, I guarantee you your activity is going to be way less if you're stepping on the leash when those things happen than if you aren't. All right, I told Chrissy she can chime in. Did we miss anything? Anything you can think of?
I think you got it all covered.
Chrissy is very good about her dog sense, and her dog Murphy is very well behaved.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Do not overcomplicate things. You don't have to pay a ton of money. You don't have to have all these big, long lists of protocols from behaviorists. Do things that work in your life, but do them, okay? These things right here that we talked about, 6, 7, 8 things, do them. It'll be life-changing, and also encourage your clients to do them.
And I just want to add, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
They involve you actually doing something. And a lot of people don't want to do anything. Like they want the dog to be well behaved. They've had a long day. They don't want to have to deal with their dog. Too bad. You have a dog.
Crate your dog while you're home. You won't have to deal with them.
You got to start doing some stuff to keep them on the straight course. You're creating the behavior you want with your dog.
It is your responsibility as a dog owner to do that.
If you don't provide any direction, the dog is going to do whatever they naturally want to do, and quite often it's not compatible with our lives living in a house. Yes. They're going to be lifting their leg on the couch. They're going to be biting the Amazon guy. They're going to act like dogs that have no direction.
And then you're going to be forced to do something. So be proactive and do something early. All right, guys, please think about these tips. Consider them, share them with others. Next week, we are having on the Super Collie's dad. I'm so super excited about this episode. Sarah Carson has been on a few times. She's going steady. Do they still say that? With this guy, Paul Bourgeois. He seems super cool. He was
former Canine military handler.
Canine military handler. Awesome interview with his older Malinois. Check it out. You're going to love it. Think about these tips. Keep things simple. Limit your screen time. And in the meantime, keep it quirky. Bye, guys.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.